I'm 81 years old, and for the better part of the last 3 decades, I lived in a state of constant, low-level exhaustion. I used to wake up feeling like I had already fought a battle before my feet even touched the floor. I blamed it on the calendar. I told myself, this is just what 80 looks like, or this is the price of a long life. I accepted the fatigue as an uninvited guest that had moved into my house and refused to leave. But recently, I had a realization that changed everything. I discovered that I wasn't tired because I was old. I was tired because I was carrying things that were never meant to be carried at this age. If you are over 50 and you feel like your battery is permanently at 10%, you need to listen to me very carefully. You are likely being drained by a leaky bucket system where your energy is escaping through holes you don't even know exist. At 81, I finally patched those holes, and I have more vitality today than I did at 60. I'm going to share exactly what was draining me for years, and it's probably draining you too. The first hole in my bucket was what I call decisional debt. Most of us are walking around with 1,000 open loops in our minds. We have things we meant to say, projects we meant to start, and clutter we meant to clear. Every unfinished task in your life is a tiny parasitic drain on your mental energy. Think about that for a second. Your brain is like a supercomputer, and you have too many programs running in the background. At 81, I realized that my fatigue wasn't physical. It was the weight of someday. I spent years saying, I'll get to that later, not realizing that later was a debt I was paying interest on every single day. I had to learn the brutal art of the no and the done. I started closing those loops, either finishing the task or deciding once and for all that it would never be finished. I threw away the clutter in my garage. I settled old arguments, and I forgave myself for the things I'll never get to. The moment I cleared the mental attic, the physical exhaustion started to lift. You cannot run a modern engine with the baggage of 40 years ago dragging behind you. But here is the part that surprises most men, something that hits deeper than any physical ailment. I realized that I was being drained by emotional vampires in my own social circle. As we age, we tend to hold on to people out of habit or a sense of duty. I had friends and acquaintances who did nothing but complain, relive old grievances, or dump their anxieties onto me. I thought I was being a good man by listening. In reality, I was allowing my limited energy to be harvested by people who didn't want to get better. They just wanted an audience. From my observation at 81, your social circle should be an oxygen tank, not an exhaust pipe. I had to make the difficult choice to distance myself from the drainers. It felt cold at first, but the surge in my daily energy was undeniable. You cannot afford to spend your 80s or your 50s refueling people who have a hole in their own tanks. Surround yourself with those who challenge you, laugh with you, and look forward, not just backward. That friction-free environment is where your energy returns. If a friendship feels like a chore, it's a drain. Stop paying that tax. And then there is the silent inflammatory trap. For years, I ate what I thought was a standard healthy diet. But at 81, I discovered that my body had become highly sensitive to things it used to handle just fine. I was eating foods that were causing internal friction, low-level inflammation that my body had to fight 24 hours a day. I was literally using 50% of my daily energy just to process the fuel I was putting in. I suspect that a lot of what we call aging is actually just our bodies being exhausted from the internal war against modern processed foods, hidden sugars, and chemicals we were never meant to ingest. When I simplified my fuel, focusing on clarity over taste, the fog lifted. I wasn't tired anymore because my body finally stopped fighting itself. You have to realize that at 81, your internal laboratory is much more sensitive. If you give it the wrong chemicals, it will spend all its power trying to stay balanced, leaving you with nothing for the actual living. Most men never connect their afternoon crash to the inflammatory meal they had 3 hours prior. They just think they need a nap. I'm telling you, you don't need a nap. You need a cleaner engine. Now pay attention because this is the habit that matters more than almost all the others, and it's the one we are all failing at. I call it the light trap. We are the first generation of seniors in history to live in a world of artificial noon. For years, I would sit in my chair at night scrolling through a tablet or watching the news until 10 or 11 p.m. I thought it was relaxing. In reality, I was telling my brain that the sun was still up. I was destroying my sleep architecture before I even closed my eyes. At 81, your brain needs a very specific wash cycle during the night to clear out waste. By exposing myself to blue light and constant information late at night, I was preventing that wash cycle from happening. I was waking up with a dirty brain every morning. The moment I reclaimed the sunset, turning off the screens and letting the natural darkness prepare my mind, my energy doubled. It wasn't that I needed more sleep. I needed better cleaning. We are biological creatures, yet we try to live like digital ones. Your brain is exhausted because it never gets to experience a true night. And here is the secret that most people miss entirely. It's the movement paradox. When you're tired, your instinct is to sit down. You think, I'll save my energy by resting. But at 81, I've learned that energy isn't saved. It's generated. The more I sat, the more tired I became. The more I moved, the more power I had. Your body is like a self-charging battery. It needs the friction of movement to create the spark of life. For years, I let myself become sedentary because I felt too tired to walk. It was a downward spiral. I had to force the initial movement to break the cycle. I started with 5 minutes, then 10. Now, my daily walk is my charging station. If you wait until you feel like moving, you'll be sitting in that chair until the end. You have to move to feel alive, not wait to feel alive to move. Gravity is a relentless thief. If you don't resist it daily, it will eventually take everything from you. But there was a deeper drain that almost no one discusses. It's the identity trap. I was tired because I was still trying to be the man I was at 40. I was trying to compete with a version of myself that no longer exists. I was wasting energy on vanity and the expectations of others. At 81, there is a profound energy that comes from acceptance. When you stop fighting the reality of your age and start working with it, a massive weight is lifted. I stopped trying to hustle. I stopped trying to prove my worth through productivity. I realized that my worth is inherent. This shift in perspective saved me more energy than any diet ever could. Many of you are exhausted because you are playing a role that doesn't fit you anymore. You are wearing a suit of armor that is too heavy for the current journey. Take it off. You'll be amazed at how fast you can move when you aren't trying to impress people who aren't even watching. Finally, I discovered that the greatest drain on my life was the lack of a new mission. When you retire and you stop looking toward a goal, your brain starts to power down. It thinks the job is done. And when the brain thinks the job is done, it stops sending the chemicals of vitality through your veins. Why should the body stay strong if the mind has nothing to do? I was tired because I had no why for the next morning. Finding this mission, this channel, this connection with you, gave my brain a reason to keep the lights on. Purpose is the ultimate anti-fatigue medication. It overrides the aches and the pains. It gives you a second wind that can last for decades. If you don't have a project that scares you a little bit or a goal that makes you want to jump out of bed, then of course you're tired, you're bored. And at 81, boredom is much more exhausting than hard work. You aren't old, you're just uninspired. I am 81 years old. I finally understand why I was tired. And it wasn't the years. It was the weight. It was the junk in my diet, the junk in my schedule, the junk in my social circle, and the junk in my mind. Once I cleared the deck, I found the man I thought I had lost 20 years ago. I found a version of myself that is leaner, faster, and more focused. You don't have to be a victim of the calendar. You don't have to accept a life of fading out into the gray. Patch the holes in your bucket. Clear your mental debt. Protect your sleep like it's a sacred ritual. And for heaven's sake, find a mission that makes your heart beat a little faster. I don't know how many more sunrises I have left, but I know I'm going to meet every single one of them with my eyes wide open and my tank full. I've stopped looking at the end of the road and started looking at the quality of the step I'm taking right now. And right now, I feel powerful. If this message reached you, if it made you realize that your fatigue might be a choice rather than a destiny, then stay with me. This is a journey of reclaiming what the world says you should have already lost. But I want to hear from you. I want to know where your energy is going. If you had to name just one drain in your life right now, is it a person, a habit, or a lack of purpose? Which one of those is stealing your fire? Tell me in the comments. I read every single word, and I want to see you in the arena with me. Stay sharp, stay energized, and above all, take care of your soul.